So we're going to get started. Apologize for the late start. Welcome and thanks for joining us for our third town hall. I'm Valerie Lord from Envision Consulting. We are a firm that provides search and strategy services to nonprofits exclusively. And we started this webinar series really just to offer support to all of our incredible nonprofit organizations that are struggling, evolving, and most certainly rising up with what is going on in today's world. So today's topic is productivity. We have three experts with us today with pro tips for yourself, your team, and even your kids. And as our experts talk, please share your questions in the chat box for Zoom. And depending on time, I'll either field those questions to our speakers, or more likely, we will answer everybody's questions at the end. So let's get started. Our first speaker is Clark Soeurs, founder of Expert Effect, a human resources consulting firm that specializes in stress resiliency for optimum performance. And he's going to talk to us about how to communicate effectively while working remote.
Great, thanks, Valerie. Good to connect with all of you via this town hall. Envision, thank you for the invite. So we're going to talk about two things: team collaboration and also effective communication. So with team collaboration, one of the things that can get in the way with that is stress. And I'm sure no one in your work environment is stressed right now. It's kind of a relaxed time. Not so much. We're finding that stress levels that are all-time highs. People are dealing with anxiety, personal issues, more workload, et cetera, et cetera. So stress is the enemy of team collaboration. When someone is stressed, it generates self-preservation. That's a natural response. It also generates emotional triggers where they might lash out to those that are close to them. And they might be doing that with their spouses at home, but also are going to be doing that in the work environment. Oftentimes we're like family, especially in small nonprofits. And then it's a vicious cycle. If someone is stressed out, lashes out at another, is kind of in self-preservation mode, it creates conflict in the workplace. And then that conflict creates stress for the person who's already stressed out. And then it creates more stress for their coworkers. So the solution to this is, number one, when we are feeling the effects of stress, instead of seeing our colleagues as people who are adding to the stress or who are triggering us, viewing them as part of the solution. So how can this colleague help me relieve my stress, find solutions to things that are getting in the way, that are creating anxiety? And then it's always a two-way street with conflict and collaboration. So if you are the recipient of an employee who is displaying these stress levels, is to, number one, just determine in this moment, what do they need from me? So rather than getting angry and offended and how dare they treat me this way, instead just have a shift. Okay, we're all going through a hard time. What does my colleague need from me? What response do they need from me? What resources do they need from me in this moment? Does that mean you're just going to be a doormat and allow colleagues to display poor behavior towards you? No, you can still speak up, let them know how their behavior affected you, how it made you feel, so they can prevent it from occurring again, but also really look and see what your colleague needs from you. So that is just one of many ways to improve collaboration in the work environment and just dealing with the stress levels. Another aspect is effective communication. So with this, we are now in a virtual world where we have these cams that are broadcasting us, and there's some ways to just make sure that communication is effective in the midst of that. So take a step back and just think about this cam environment. Let's say the sheltering is stopped and we're allowed back in the work environment. And what if I come into the work environment at a meeting and I just have a mirror in front of me? And throughout the entire meeting, I keep looking at the mirror, just making sure I look okay. That's going to affect my communication with the team. I'm distracted. I'm thinking about myself. Some of us don't like the way we look, and so it actually takes away our confidence because we're seeing like, oh my gosh, I can't believe how I look today. I haven't had a haircut in weeks. So turning off the visibility of your cam in Zoom and other things can be a home run. So when you start a meeting, sure, check your camera, make sure the lighting is good, et cetera, people can see you, but then turn it off so that you don't have this mirror effect going on. Another thing with cams is if we are in a meeting and someone was like, hey, I don't want to be seen by all of you. And so they step outside the meeting and are just kind of saying things through the door, and we don't have that visual contact with them, it's going to affect communication. So same thing is really encouraging employees to show up to a meeting kind of camera ready, even though we have this tendency to want to stay in our pajamas and such. Tell people like, hey, for this meeting, let's be camera ready. We really want to connect and see each other. And if someone's concerned about the background in their house, they can use a visual backdrop in many cases. And then lastly, even in this virtual world, we still have the opportunity to decide how we are going to communicate with other people in this remote environment. So there's a great litmus test for this. So you have this opportunity when you're going to communicate with someone. Should I email them? Should I post something in Slack? Should I get on a Zoom with them? Should I give them a phone call? And instead of doing what's easiest for you in the moment, do what's most effective. And that is thinking about, okay, can the outcome be having clear communication and empathetic communication? So if you focus on those two things when choosing how to communicate, it's going to be a home run with the recipient. So how are you going to make sure that you communicate a clear message so there's not confusion? And then how do you communicate, especially if it's tough issues, in an empathetic way so that it'll be well received by them? So Valerie, those are just a few tips on team collaboration and effective communication. I know we're going to have questions and answers at the end, and I look forward to hearing from our other panelists.
Thank you, Clark. That was great. I already turned off my camera.
Good for you. Way to go, Valerie.
So next up, we're going to hear from Eden Garcia-Balis. Eden joins us from Airport Marina Counseling Services, which, if you don't know, is a 50-year-old, highly regarded nonprofit organization that provides mental health services, everything in terms of counseling, therapy, psychiatric care, referrals. So thank you for joining us, Eden.
Thank you, Valerie. So, well, first I'd like to say that these are unprecedented times, that we've never gone through anything like this before, and that we're writing the first playbook. So I was asked to speak about tips and coping strategies for working effectively from home, especially during these times. And what should we do? So it's important that with your family and with your employees, that you speak honestly about the reality of the situation. This situation is our new normal. This situation is not what we're used to. And we've never gone through a stay-at-home order or a lockdown or a shutdown. So there is so much uncertainty, disappointment, anxiety, depression, and these emotions tend to ebb and flow. It's important to talk about it and let people express themselves. Sometimes those that are on the receiving end feel that they have to do something when someone expresses discomfort, and it's just about acknowledging people's feelings. So for example, if an employee or family member comes to you and says, gosh, I am really depressed these days because I can't get out, saying something like, I get what you mean, or yeah, that sounds really tough. If you think that this person, instead of jumping into problem solving, oh, you should call a family member, oh, you should go for a walk. If you think that this person needs coping, then you might want to ask, do you want to hear some coping strategies? Is this what you're looking for? At our last clinic meeting, we started the meeting by asking everybody how they were feeling and about their health. And I hear that organizations do this in a variety of ways, that some do it with one word, and that others do it with a short phrase. And as a leader, it's important for us to do a temperature check. This will then allow us to know what we need to address and how to proceed. And I have to tell you that I do the same thing with my family every day, that we do a check-in. How is everybody doing? How is everybody feeling? For the same reason, it will allow me to know what I need to address with them and how we need to proceed. I am a CEO, a wife, a mother of 2 young boys, and I have 2 dogs, and they all require attention. We're all in the same boat, and we're all juggling different responsibilities. A structured environment is very important. not only for you, but for your children. We are all wearing multiple hats. We have to maintain a daily routine, including your morning routine. Get out of bed in the morning. Like Clark said, get out of your pajamas. And I was with you those first days. I was working in my pajamas, in my bed. But I have to tell you that it's really not. If you ask yourself, are you in the right mindset? And are you being the most productive that you can be? And if you are that person in your pajamas, good for you. But you're really the exception to the norm. Have a designated workspace at home. If you have an office, that's great. But sometimes the office may be the kitchen table. It should be somewhere that's nice and quiet, and set limits with your kids. So for example, set a timer for an hour and tell your kids that you can't be interrupted. And when I first started doing this with my kids, and first let me say the time will depend on your goals for the day, as well as the ages of your children. So when I first started doing this with my boys, they had lots of questions at the beginning. Well, what if someone comes to the door? Mom, you told us never to answer the door. What if someone comes to the door? So I would say, can you think of someone else that you can get? Your father's here as well. I'd like you to go talk to your father. And by the way, make sure that you and your partner aren't scheduling the times that you don't want to be interrupted at the same time. Another one of my favorite questions from them was, well, what if I get hurt? Well, of course you can interrupt me. As a matter of fact, I want you to interrupt me if you get hurt. So once we kind of got through those things, they now understand. And this is also a great way to get your children to be more independent, to get their own snacks, to make their own sandwiches. My children would call from their room to ask me to get them a glass of water. Shame on me, right? So they don't do that anymore. Ground yourself every morning using your 5 senses and bringing your attention to the present. How do you want your day to go? Feel your feet on the ground, the rain on your face. This was a good one for me yesterday, and something to make you feel connected to the earth and in the right mindset to conquer the day. Staying connected to friends and family is equally important as staying connected to your employees. We all have multiple Zoom meetings every day, and I encourage you to use the same technology with your families and friends, as that really needs to be a priority. And what about alone time? Do you need to take a jog? Do you need to take a walk? Do you need to go for a drive? Don't feel guilty. It's important that you take alone time, and your family will probably appreciate it too. It's important that you do a reset. Let's talk about expectations, both for your employees and for your children. Are they realistic? I am an overachiever like many of you, and was finding that my expectations all the way around were too high. I was frustrated with myself and disappointed when I couldn't get through my to-do lists for the day. We have to understand that these are different times. We are working in different environments. I've learned that setting expectations that are too high are just a way to be let down, to become angry, and possibly hold resentment. So look at your expectations. Are they realistic for the current environment? Currently, I am asked to homeschool my children from 9 to 3, to work an 8-hour job, in addition to make 3 nutritious meals a day. And so this is the time to get real. What is realistic? How much work can you do, and how can we help our children thrive during this time? Keep it all in perspective. Go with the flow, pick your battles, and sometimes you have to let things go. And the last quick caveat I want to talk about is Brene Brown and her FFTs. If you haven't heard of FFT, Brene is okay with cussing, and it is fucking first times. And we are currently in a fucking first time, the first time that we're having to deal with this pandemic. But it's not just the pandemic that she talks about. It's really any time that we're dealing with something for the first time, we're uncomfortable. It's scary. We tend to shy away from it. And there's usually a lot of negative self-talk around it. And this wasn't our choice. Now we're in this situation, and what are we gonna do about it? So she talks about naming the difficulty, normalizing it, putting things in perspective, and reality checking your expectations. And I highly recommend this podcast. So that concludes my presentation. Thank you.
Eden, that was wonderful. Naming, normalizing, perspective, expectations. I love it. All right, moving right along. Next, we have Lisa Cavelier from the Boys and Girls Club of Pasadena to talk to us about what we should do with our kids right now.
Yeah, thank you. I have to say, Eden covered a fair number of things, but I'd focus in on a couple. One being routine, and can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I would add to the routine piece that it doesn't have to be the same routine necessarily as the kids are used to normally. So, for example, if they're normally up and out of the house and in class by 8. Maybe there's morning activity time that's not school related. Then they jump into a school routine, and then they go to some more activities, then they do more school. We're finding with the kids that we're talking to, the families that we're talking to, that trying to push kids into a mold right now is tough because of a lot of the things that Eden talked about and the stresses that that kids are having. So that said, whatever that routine is, get it and stick to it. That seems to be the key of what we're finding. Also, I'll tell you that Boys and Girls Club of Pasadena in particular has created a virtual club, and we're starting it. We've had a lot of just accessible things on our website for the last 3 weeks, but now we're starting virtual and interactive activities with kids. We're not the only ones. Everyone is doing this, and this is not just for our members, this is for everybody. But find ways that you can get a respite as a parent, that your kids can go do things that don't have to involve you. And so we're going to be offering every day sort of a virtual club experience from 3:30 to 5:30 that will include homework help and activities and things where our staff will be on Zoom or can't think of the name of the other one. There's another platform, there are a bunch of them, that they will be on essentially, I was about to say doing things with your kids. And so that you have a break, the kids have some semblance of normal, and it gives them a chance to connect with their friends as well through us, and frankly through a lot of our staff who they love. And so we're trying to bring back a little bit of normal with a club experience like that. So I want to thank Envision. I meant to do that at the beginning. Thank you all. And thank you just for the short form that this is in. We're all on way too many of these every day. So I appreciate the fact that this is short and sweet. So I'm going to leave it at that finding the right routine for your kids and your families, finding the right connecting points for them and other things like an after school program. We're happy to have any kids. They don't have to be members. And there are a lot of those programs out there, like I said. Also, direct help to families is really important to us. We made 900 phone calls last week just to check in on our key families, and are finding more and more families that need help. And so we're looking at ways to help them and frankly, to bring them back, sort of bring them to the table and let them share with us what they need. And then also find the right way to reach out and help all of them. So Boys and Girls Club is here, active. We've furloughed a bunch of staff. We're down in our revenues, but we are not stopping for a second. We're not even slowing. We are full on with our mission to help kids and families in this city, and would love to, talk to any of you outside of this format. If anybody needs help or wants to connect, I'd be happy to connect in with you.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Lisa. Yeah, that was great. So now, does anybody have questions to put into the chat that we can ask our speakers here today? And if you don't, what I would say is, inspired by Eden's idea, what about using one word to describe how you're feeling today? I think that was something that I heard from all three of our speakers, is just the value of pausing and saying to, whether it's yourself, your team, your kids, or another family, is just, how are you? It seems to be very helpful in staying present and not being overwhelmed by this unknown. So can we get some one words or some questions? Everyone's so shy. I've got 2 minutes. Optimistic. I like that. Hopeful, grounded. There is something about, being present that is encouraged. It's wonderful. Okay, we do have a question here about how to address unhappy staff. Eden, Clark, Lisa, you could all probably weigh in on this.
Yeah, I'd be happy to sound in.
Mhm.
So I was just speaking to one of our clients a couple days ago, and they are in an essential business where their staff is actually needing to go into a homeless shelter and provide services. So the staff is really upset because LASA is providing premium pay to their employees for doing these types of activities. But this nonprofit is not in position to provide the premium pay because they're not sure if they're going to get reimbursed for it. So these employees are very, very unhappy about it. So I think two things. One is taking a step back on the response. So if an employee brings a concern about, that they're very unhappy and disgruntled about something, saying, hey, thanks for letting me know. I really want to think through how we can help you and whatnot. And taking a step back and kind of thinking through a strategy, having a thought partner with your HR department or other colleagues on how do we respond to this. And then meeting with the employee, encouraging them to voice their frustrations and to vent, but also asking them for their solutions. So not just providing solutions that the company has to offer, but maybe they have a solution we haven't even thought of, and it could be easier to implement than the company's solution. And so I think those are two things that could just really help. And if they feel heard and that you're in their court and you're advocating for them, you can't do everything that they hope during this time because they might be in that self-preservation mode. If you do listen and look for solutions, it could help alleviate some of that unhappiness. Great question.
I throw in too, this is Lisa, just in one quick note that I'd really bring the board in on that one, because I think that that's a very mission critical moment, that if your staff is that unhappy that they're all going to flee or down the road you won't have them, I think that that's something that I would want at least the executive committee to be very aware of and see what solutions they can help come up with. And it may mean that they step it up a little bit with their own fundraising or their own giving. I don't know, but I would personally, in that case, if it was a more than one or two and across the board, I would probably want very much to have the board helping with some solutions on that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, just like Clark and
Lisa.
Or Lisa, thank you, Lisa. Just like Clark and Lisa mentioned, I would do both, asking the staff for solutions as well as the board.
Mm-hmm. I mean, that's something good that's coming out of this, is there is kind of an overall general increased appreciation for staff and employees, just kind of across the board, a little more self-awareness of taking care of your staff as much as you take care of your customers or your clients. We have one more question and then we'll keep things to brief. But in terms of how do you maintain your own your motivation? Of course, I mean, you gave lots of tips on, forcing yourself to get out of bed, create a routine, these kind of, is there anything that can inspire, kind of go above that day-to-day motivation?
It's all about the mission. Our mission is not going away. It's going to get even more intensely. We're going to be called upon even more when this is over and even during the duration. So it's going back to why we're doing what we're doing, making sure that we're constantly harping on that we are in this all in to help kids and families or whatever our mission is. And that's, we have to keep our eyes on that. And I walk a lot, miles and miles every day.
And I would add to remember that this isn't going to be this way forever, that there is a light at the end of the tunnel, and to remind ourselves, not just that motivates me every morning. I think about that, this is not going to be this way forever, and we will have our lives back, hopefully sooner than later.
Yeah. That's great. Well, I don't know about you guys, but I definitely feel better after this. So thank you all. We will be sending, of course, a recording out of this webinar to each of you. And thank you so much to our speakers. You guys are wonderful. Really helped.
Thank you for pulling it together.
Great. So stay well and have a wonderful day.
Thank you. You too.
Have a good day, everyone.